Alright, let's get into it. There's a lot of talk right now about Carlos Prates and whether or not he can actually beat Ian Garry. And as always, the MMA world is kind of split. You've got one side of the fans fully behind Prates, thinking he's about to shock everyone and beat Ian. Then you got the other side, more measured, saying, nah, Ian's been tested, he's been under the bright lights, and he's gonna handle this like a pro. Now, personally, I'm leaning Ian Garry. I think he's the safer pick. I think he's underrated by a lot of fans, and honestly, he's been steadily proving himself. He's got solid fundamentals, high level striking, and he's been in there with some dangerous guys. He might not be everyone's cup of tea personality wise, but when it comes to fighting, he's legit. Carlos, on the other hand, he's kind of a wild card. He's got that insane power, he's riding a wave of momentum, and he's definitely that X factor. But here's the thing, he hasn't been tested yet at this level. We've seen him starch dudes, but what happens when he faces someone who won't crumble early? What happens when a fight gets gritty? When the pace picks up and he's forced to make adjustments? That's what makes this fight so interesting. It's not that Carlos can't win, it's just that we haven't seen him in those deep waters yet, and that's what makes this fight so interesting. It's not that Carlos can't win, it's we haven't seen him tested in those deep waters yet, and that's really what today's video is really about. Because while Ian is the more proven guy and probably the safer pick, the danger that Carlos brings is very real, and it deserves a closer look. So first off, Ian Garry can be a bit of a slow starter, and we've seen that more than once now. A good example is this fight with Jeff Neal in that first round. In that first round, Ian spent a lot of time downloading the data, staying long, using that jab, circling and chopping Neal's legs with low kicks. He wasn't rushing anything. When Neal closed the distance, Ian tied him up in the clinch and worked the knees to the body to slow things down. It wasn't flashy, but it was calculated. Ian eventually settled in and controlled the tempo. Now compare that to his fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov, except this time Ian never got the chance to settle in. Shavkat didn't come out swinging wild, but he applied pressure early, closed the distance, and forced Ian into a clinch almost immediately. From there, it was suffocating. Ian didn't get that usual window to make the reads or find his rhythm. He was stuck defending, reacting, trying to survive. Now, you're probably asking, okay, so what? Why does that even matter? Well, here's the thing. Ian's a guy who needs time. He spends the first round gathering data, gathering reads, slowly piecing things together before he really starts to cook. So odds are he's not coming out guns blazing in round one. And if you're Carlos Prates, that's your blueprint. Start fast, get in his face early, don't give Ian the space to play that slow, methodical chess game, because once he settles in, he's sharp, confident, and way harder to deal with. But if you flip the script, bring the heat right away, throw with bad intentions, you might catch him before he even gets into rhythm. And if you're wondering whether Carlos Prates really brings that early pressure, I mean, just look at his last two fights. Against Neil Magny, he wasted no time, came out aggressive, took the center, and started chipping away at that lead leg. You can see Magny getting backed up and reacting instead of leading. Then boom! Carlos clips him and ends it with a clean first round knockout. No warm up, just straight violence. Then before, he fought Li Jiliang. Same energy, Carlos came forward, landed sharp shots early, and kept Lee uncomfortable the whole time until he played with him a bit and took him out in the second round. Another finish, another performance of the night. And we saw shades of this in the Shavkat fight. Ian landed some clean shots early. He was trying to stay technical, stick and move, but that didn't really bother Shavkat. He just kept pressing forward, calmly closing the distance, and tying Ian up in the clinch. It wasn't overwhelming or wild or chaotic sense, but it was steady. Shavkat didn't give Ian time to breathe or set the pace, and that was enough to throw off his rhythm. That's the danger when your opponent doesn't respect your power. They're willing to walk through the clean stuff and force you into their world. And Carlos brings that same kind of confidence. He's not gonna get gun shy if Ian lands something clean. He's gonna keep coming forward because he knows one moment of chaos could be all he needs. Because Carlos is not gonna bite on feints. He's not gonna freeze just because Ian landed a nice clean jab. He's gonna keep walking him down, throwing bombs, because he knows that that one shot might be all he needs. That changes the psychology of the fight. Most of Ian's past opponents try to play the same finesse game. Carlos is coming to end it, and if Ian can't make him respect his power early, he's gonna find himself in some deep water real fast. Another thing that really jumps out, Garry doesn't look all that comfortable when he's the one that's being pressured. He's slick when he's in control, when he's got the space to operate, and he's the one dictating the tempo. That's when you see him flowing, popping the jabs, circling out, setting traps. But when someone takes that space away from you and gets in his face, that's when things start to look shaky. I mean, just look what Shavkat did to him. He didn't give Ian time to settle, didn't sit back and let him be the matador. Shavkat cut the cage off and forced exchanges on his term, and Ian looked off. The rhythm wasn't there, the footwork didn't look as confident, and for a lot of that fight, it felt like he was just reacting, not executing. It's the kind of thing you can't fake your way through when someone's in your face and it's not going away. It tests you in a different way. That's why this could be a real problem with Prates. He's not some wild, reckless brawler, but he applies pressure with purpose. He's fast, he throws heat, and he knows how to break guys down once he gets them backed up. If he can get Ian retreating even just a little bit, he doesn't even have to overextend. He can pick his shots and force the kind of fight that Ian doesn't thrive in. That's where things get interesting, because when Ian's not leading the dance, we still don't know how deep he can swim when things get gritty. Another thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the bodywork, and man, Carlos Prates is nasty when he goes downstairs. The dude isn't just headhunting, he'll rip the body with kicks, digs those hooks to the ribs, and he does it with bad intentions. Against someone like Ian Garry, that could end up being a serious difference maker. And I gotta say, one of Ian's biggest strengths is his movement. He glides around the cage, picking his shots, and keeps guys chasing shadows. But one thing that kills movement faster than anything, clean, consistent body shots. You can go back to his fight with Jeff Neal. Jeff landed a couple nice digs to the body, and you can see Ian's tempo dip just a little bit because he wasn't quite bouncing the same way. His exits looked a little bit more labored, and that's all it takes for a pressure fighter like Carlos to start closing the distance. Because if Prates comes out early and starts attacking that midsection, body kicks, knees in the clinch, tight hooks, it's gonna make Ian second guess every step. He's gonna feel it when he tries to circle out. He's gonna breathe a little heavier when those scrambles start. And when that movement slows just enough, that's when the brawling starts to close the gap. That's where Carlos is dangerous. He doesn't need many opportunities. He just needs one opening. And breaking down the body is a perfect way to create that moment. And that's really the key here. Carlos Prates doesn't need to win a technical chess match for all 5 rounds. That's not his lane, and honestly, it's not where this fight gets interesting. What he needs to do is drag Ian to that kind of moment that can flip a fight on its head. He needs to create chaos, make it gritty, make it wild, force Ian to fight his fight, not the clean, composed highlight reel type of performance Ian is used to delivering. Because let's be real, if this turns into a point-based striking battle with a lot of space and clean exchanges, that favors Ian Garry in my opinion. But if Carlos can take that rhythm away, if he can chop at the legs, dig at the body, throw some big shots up top, and turn this into a scrap, that's when Ian starts reacting instead of calculating. And when he's reacting, that's when mistakes happens. That's when the fight becomes a coin flip. And the other thing here, Gary's not some untouchable defensive wizard. He's slick, sure, but he's pretty hittable. We've seen guys tag him before, even in fights he's dominating. So if Carlos can land clean, especially early, you're not just testing Ian's defense, you're testing his composure, and that's exactly what's the kind of pressure Carlos thrives in. He doesn't need to win every moment, he just needs to turn this one into one of them finishes. Alright, let's talk about the grappling, because that's one area where a lot of people automatically assume that Ian Garry has majority of the edge over Carlos Prates. The popular take is that if things get sketchy on the feet, Ian can just switch gears, take Carlos down, and ride out a safe win. But let's pump the brakes on that a bit, because while Garry can mix in the grappling, he's not some relentless chain wrestler, and recent fights have shown that pretty clearly. Take the MVP fight for an example. That was the first time Ian really leaned into his wrestling heavy approach, and yeah, he got the win, but it wasn't exactly smooth sailing. He struggled to hold position, had to work hard for those takedowns, and MVP, who's not known for having a good ground game, was still able to get back up multiple times. It wasn't like Ian was out there mauling him with control time or throwing submissions. He wrestled because he had to, not because that's his bread and butter. So apply that same scenario at Carlos Prates, a guy who's younger, stronger, more explosive, and has way more heat coming back his way than MVP did. You shoot a lazy takedown on Prates and don't secure it, you're getting elbowed or kneed in the face. Even if Ian gets him down, Carlos isn't just going to accept the position. He trains with killers at Chew boxing system that's built for chaos. These guys aren't textbook grapplers, but they know how to survive, explode out of bad spots, and punish you for trying to slow them down. So yeah, sure, the grappling is a path for Ian, but it's not some guaranteed safe zone. He's not going to just lay on Carlos for 5 rounds without resisting. And the moment he starts getting desperate for a takedown or fails to keep Carlos grounded, that's when the fight flips back into Carlos's world, a world where one shot takes it all. So yeah, Garry might be the smart pick. I mean, after all, I'm picking him, but if Carlos can drag him into deep waters, this whole thing can flip in a heartbeat.